When the Beatles officially fell apart in the early 1970s, the world didn't just lose the greatest band in popular music history. It witnessed the collapse of one of the most influential creative partnerships of all time, John Lennon and Paul McCartney. Behind the beautiful melodies and harmonies that defined the 1960s lay tensions that had been building for years. Differences in artistic vision, business disputes, and deeply personal wounds that never fully healed. After the split, Lennon didn't stay silent. Instead, he channeled his emotions directly and sometimes brutally into his music. Several songs from his early solo career weren't just artistic expressions, they were emotional documents, raw, unfiltered accounts of disappointment, anger, and a sense of betrayal toward McCartney. Although the two eventually reconciled privately before the tragedy of the assassination of John Lennon, the songs Lennon left behind tell a far more complicated story. Here are three of the most notable songs where Lennon speaks about McCartney, whether implicitly or with unmistakable clarity. Number 1. How Do You Sleep? Released on the album Imagine in 1971, How Do You Sleep is often regarded as one of the sharpest diss tracks in rock history. This wasn't subtle, this was confrontation. With lines like, "The only thing you done was yesterday, and since you're gone, you're just another day." Lennon openly diminishes McCartney's contributions, even taking aim at one of his most iconic songs, Yesterday. The context makes it even more explosive. At the time, McCartney had just released Ram, which Lennon interpreted as containing veiled jabs at him and Yoko Ono. In response, Lennon laid everything on the table. He even brought in George Harrison to play on the track, symbolizing that this tension was part of a much larger fracture within the band. Musically, the song rides a laid-back groove that contrasts sharply with its biting lyrics. Today, critics often view How Do You Sleep as an early example of call-out culture in music, long before hip-hop made diss tracks a mainstream phenomenon. Yet beneath the anger lies something more vulnerable, a deeply hurt artist grappling with the loss of a once unbreakable bond. Number 2. Steel and Glass. Unlike the direct assault of How Do You Sleep, Steel and Glass from the album Walls and Bridges takes a more ambiguous but no less cutting approach. The song is commonly linked to Alan Klein, the controversial figure who became deeply involved in the band's financial affairs during their final years. Klein was a major source of conflict, supported by Lennon, Harrison, and Ringo, but strongly opposed by McCartney. Still, some listeners believe lines like, cannot be entirely separated from McCartney's shadow. At the time, Lennon and McCartney's relationship wasn't just emotionally strained, it was legally fractured. McCartney's 1970 lawsuit to dissolve the Beatles' partnership intensified the conflict, creating an atmosphere of mistrust that seeped into their solo work. Steel and Glass reflects a shift in Lennon's approach, less about direct attack, more about processing the chaos surrounding him. From a modern perspective, the track is often seen as a bridge between Lennon's raw anger in the early 1970s and the more introspective tone he would later adopt. Number 3. I Found Out. On his debut solo album, John Lennon Plastic Ono Planet Band, John Lennon presented himself in his most stripped-down, emotionally exposed form. One of the standout tracks is I Found Out. While not explicitly about McCartney, the song contains a striking reference that has fueled years of interpretation. In the line, the word Paul is often viewed as a double entendre, referring both to Apostle Paul and subtly to Paul McCartney. I Found Out is a declaration of liberation from religion, drugs, illusions, and even relationships that Lennon felt had misled him. Including Paul in this context suggests that at the time, Lennon saw parts of his past, including his partnership with McCartney, as myths he needed to dismantle. The album itself was heavily influenced by primal scream therapy, a psychological method that encouraged the release of deeply buried emotions. It's no surprise then that the songs feel so raw, direct, and confrontational. Despite the bitterness captured in these songs, history shows that Lennon and McCartney's story didn't end in hostility. By the mid-1970s, the two had reconnected and even came close to collaborating again. In later interviews, Lennon admitted that much of his early 1970s anger stemmed from pain and insecurity rather than pure hatred. Today, songs like How Do You Sleep are no longer heard simply as personal attacks. They are essential chapters in a larger narrative, the story of two creative giants who changed the world together, then struggled to understand life apart. In today's music landscape, where artist feuds play out in public, Lennon and McCartney's story feels like an early blueprint. The difference is, what they left behind isn't just drama, but a body of work that continues to be studied, debated, and above all, listened to.